Hi everyone, this is Erica Apathy and I am recording my UBD for 628. So for my unit I focused on the life cycle of salmon. And so for the established goals or the standards, the first standard I focused was the science, was inquiry and process, and with the hopes of the students developing understanding of culture, local knowledge, history, and interactions between the environment and the scientific knowledge. And then focus down here is the concepts of life science. So students will develop an understanding of the structure, function, behavior, development, life cycle, and diversity of living organisms. And then, of course, the technology. So students will use technology to observe, analyze, interpret, and draw conclusions. Students will build knowledge by actively exploring real-world issues and using theories to find answers to those. So then back up here at the top, so this transfer section here, students will be able to independently use their learning to gain knowledge about the life cycle of a salmon and how it relates to the animals and residents of Southeast Alaska. So then in the understanding section here, students will understand that salmon go through a specific life cycle. The essential questions being, what are the life cycle of a salmon and how are salmon important to Southeast Alaska? Then moving down here to this section, so students will know the 6 stages of the salmon life cycle, learn the 5 different types of salmon, and how to differentiate between the types of Pacific salmon. So then in the skills section, students will be skilled at identifying each stage of the life cycle of a salmon, identifying why salmon are important to life in Southeast Alaska, understanding the impact salmon have on traditional cultures, and at the end they will use technology to create a portfolio that could either be with using PowerPoint, a blog, or a Word document, and those would really depend on the age of this the class that this unit was being taught, and it would be used to present a cumulative work at the end of the unit. So that is my stage 1, or the desired results. So moving on to stage 2, where I focused on assessments. So for formative assessments, I would like to give a pre-test, and this is just more for me to know where students maybe need a little more a topic maybe needs to be covered more. So I stated here that I will use the results to know what students may be missing, and I will use the test to drive the course of the entire unit. And I may have to adapt my unit depending on the results from the pre-test. So then moving down to more formative assessments using technology. So I will create an interactive activity that allows students to draw facts about salmon to a specific area. So, what kind of food do salmon eat? Where in Alaska do they eat octopus here? That sort of thing, just trying to get an idea of what the students know and how their knowledge relates to the community they're in. And this goal or this type of assessment will also be used to hopefully have them kind of work together to determine which are true and false and kind of move each question to the correct area. And then another option for this one was to use clickers, and that would be, I would hope they would be available, and if they're not, I would use sticky notes to help move the questions. And then I would also use technology to correctly label a diagram of Pacific salmon, and they will work together to drag the labels to the correct location. And I have created a example paper that I would use to display to the class. So self-assessment would be just a KWL chart that is adapted and changed throughout the unit, and things would be moved around, and so it would be, how does the children's or the students' knowledge change? So then for performance assessment, we would do a cut and paste life cycle to determine the mastery of the unit topic. And I have presented a rubric below. I will use a post-test to help me assess the students' learning after they have finished the lesson or the unit. And students will each be assigned a topic, a salmon to focus on, and they will present that to the class and how their salmon is different than other students' salmon. And then at the end of the unit, they will take all that information, all the activities that they've done and all the research they've gathered, and it will be used to create, again, a portfolio that will be presented to the class. So other evidence will be class discussions. Students will be required to participate in any discussions we may have. Students will be expected to participate in all of our activities and complete all the projects to the best of their ability. Then for writing, students will complete writing assignments that they will use their prior knowledge and learned knowledge to demonstrate connection between the importance of the salmon and the student's personal life, family, or culture. And this will again be used in their final portfolio. So this is my rubric that will grade essentially the student's performance in their life cycle activities and then their presentation. And there's again more of it. So then moving on to stage 3, this is when I talk about more of the activities we will actually be doing. So then I talked about the pretest, which will kind of guide my where the unit goes. I will have students work on a KWL chart that will be used to see how their knowledge changes throughout the unit. I will give true and false questions. Again, I spoke about that earlier, but it will be used to see what knowledge students have and how they can kind of work together to come up with the correct answers, hopefully. And students will use clickers, if available, to complete the activity. And the use of clickers will give the students who may feel uncomfortable, speaking out in normal classroom activity to have the chance to contribute without feeling anxiety or unsure about their answer. We'll then create or have students work on a bead activity, and this will involve students making a bracelet that represents the life cycle of the salmon. So each stage of the life cycle will have a bead that represent it, and the students will need to go around to each area where the beads are placed, and they will have to find which bead goes in the correct order. I also thought this was a really fun activity to bring home, for students to bring home, and kind of be a conversation starter with their family members or people in their household to talk about what they learned. The next activity is labeling the parts of the salmon. I spoke about this earlier. It will be to label correctly the parts of the salmon, and I will use a smartboard activity to allow them to work as a class. I will do a missing word worksheet where students have to correctly fill in the missing word. I will mix up the life cycle and have students, they have to unscramble it and put it in the right order. Next, I will have students learn a life cycle song. So we will start learning this song at the beginning of the unit, and then as we progress, we will practice it throughout, and then it will also be a way for them to help remember the life cycle of the salmon. And then throughout the unit, I will have different writing prompts, and the students will have to complete those writing prompts with illustrations, and they will have to include that into their portfolio at the end. And then the last one is creating an just a portfolio or an infographic about how all the things that they learned and all the information that they gathered from their researching and looking more into their specific type of salmon. So it will include their art, pictures of their bracelet, writing prompts, songs, and I will use technology in this piece a lot because it will have to have students figure out a way to embed a video or embed a picture that they've taken, or how to get the best how to take the best picture so it looks nice. And then lastly, this is what my smartboard activity will be for looking at the parts of the salmon. So thank you.